I don't think people do that anymore. That was like
Oh.
1990s cheerleading. I don't think we're not.
Hey, we need to talk.
Hey, church communicator, we need to talk. I'm your host, Kim.
And I'm Zac, and you're listening to the Church Communications Group podcast. Hey, we need to talk.
Hey, church communicator, it is time to talk. And this week, we are talking about Can't say it. I can't say it out loud. I think we'd get sued or something like that. I don't know.
I
know
think
we
so.
can't put it in print, but
We can print it, but I think we can say it.
we can say it. Bowl. Maybe if we separate it out,
Immediately shut down.
And immediately
podcast over.
I think that
NFL's coming after you.
So if we say super every 5 minutes and the bowl every other
No, we
5
should do it like, what is it, sports style, where it's like I say super, you say bowl, super.
Yes, bowl.
Yeah, there we go.
Not one of us saying it. Yes.
Then
I don't think people do that anymore. That was like 1990s cheerleading. I don't think we're not at the NFL like, hey, I say super, you say.
So,
happening.
for the people
don't know
listening, well, that's true. But for the people listening and just tuning into season 2, now you can understand where Kim and I come from.
Yeah.
So when everybody's watching the sports component of it, me and Kim are watching the performance component of it.
Absolutely.
So we're watching like the choreography of it. We're waiting
Yeah.
for the halftime show.
So good, which is so great that today we're talking about Super.
Oh.
Thank you. And so, but today we're going to talk a little bit about something different than just football. I love saying football. Isn't that what they call it like somewhere? Anyway, but it's
In America.
In America.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you guys. I have actually never, and Steve knows this, I have never been to a Super Bowl party or actually sat and watched the Super Bowl while it is happening. I am that anti-sports that I don't do any of it. I do watch the Super Bowl commercials after the fact. And so
Yes.
Today we're going to talk Super Bowl marketing, Super Bowl commercials, and lean in there because that is actually something that we can all three talk about.
Yeah. And this is a good example because if you've listened to the podcast before, you've heard us talk about this idea of creativity and how can we derive creativity. And what we always recommend is looking outside of the church. Sometimes we get into this habit of looking at other churches and what are they doing and pulling creativity from that. But what happens is we end up creating in a circle and then we only produce the same thing. So things like the Super Bowl and Super Bowl commercials allow us the opportunity to take influence from things that are happening in our culture and pull that inspiration into the church. So that way we're able to connect with people. And so that's what's exciting about the Super Bowl commercials. And so as we think about those, we can pull even some principles that we can apply because what's after Super Bowl Sunday? Easter Sunday. So now you can pull some inspiration for how you're going to promote Easter. So with that said, Kim,
Yes.
What is your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
Okay, so I wouldn't say I have a favorite because again, it's Super Bowl. But there are some commercials that I do really enjoy. And so the first ones that I'm going to talk that I will share is that the Budweiser commercials. Okay. Now this is aging me, of course. And Zac, you're probably going, I have no idea what you're talking about. But Budweiser and I don't drink beer, but they make great commercials. And it actually it doesn't make you want to go out and drink beer. They're just really good commercials. And one of the things that they do really well is it's memorable. So you think about it. And I'm talking about it years later. I'm talking about Budweiser. I know Budweiser. It is a recognizable, it's a memorable commercial. And that sticks with us. And there's two that that most often stick with me. And that is back in the day, we had the Budweiser frogs. And this commercial started. It's like this old rickety house, like on a pond or something like that. I'm going to describe it so bad, on a lake or whatever. And it kind of like the camera goes in and there's these three frogs hanging out. And one of them is like, Bud. And then it's like cricket. And then you hear like, Bud. And it's like cricket. And then like you're wise.
I'm really enjoying this reenactment because I remember watching this commercial as a child, and now I'm just like taking my wife's face and putting it on this frog as
Bud wise. Bud. Bud.
Was meant to be. It comes full circle.
So is. But these three frogs, they basically start, and they're just saying wise, Bud, and then at the end, it's basically Budweiser, and it's all coming together, and you're like, yes. And what I loved about it too is like we ended up taking that at our church. We ended up taking the commercial years later, but taking the commercial and overdubbing it with Life Groups promotion. And so it was like it was like Life Groups. It was so good and so fun, but so rememberable.
Man, the one that really got me, and I loved it from the first time, is one of the most creative commercials that I had ever seen up until that point. Early 2000s is Old Spice Man. And I don't know if you remember, the actor was Isaiah Mustafa, just a good looking black man. He's standing in the bathroom. He's got his like shirt off and everything. And I think the first line of that commercial is, look at your man, now look at me. Now look at your man, now back at me. And then the commercial just goes on to be completely absurd as the set changes, like all around him. And then the very last line, I don't know if you guys remember, is like he starts in a bathroom and then the camera pulls out and he's like, I'm on a horse. And then he's like sitting on a horse, and it's like an Old Spice commercial. They did several of those, but that first one, man, that was just incredible because it was all practical effects. And so as it changed and everything, you were just kind of like, whoa, what just happened? Like it was such a surprise. It had a lot of humor to it. Like I love that commercial. So that was one. But one that really got me, and this is going to be funny. It's an Always commercial. And it's called Like a Girl. And this whole commercial, it starts and they're interviewing adults and they say, what does it mean to run like a girl? And so the adults are like, and then they're like, what does it mean to fight like a girl? And they're like, and everything. And then they interview little girls and they're like, what does it mean to run like a girl? And these girls are like running their hearts out. What does it mean to fight like a girl? And they're like, yeah, let's go, and everything. And then the whole point of the commercial at the end is like, up until a certain point, like a girl isn't an insult. It's a thing of pride. And like these young girls take pride in who they are. But as they get older, they kind of get conformed to the world's view of what a girl is. And the emotion that commercial like generated, that was something else. Like it really kind of hit hard. It was convicting, but it was positive. So it was a really interesting commercial. Like when I saw that one, I was just like, wow, that really makes you think. But it really kind of engages you at the same time.
Well, hey, Church Communicator, I'm Kim, and I just wanted to tell you guys about this special opportunity that we have going on this year, 2025. We have launched these church communications cohorts. Now, these are multiple weeks where we're going to dig into your church communications. You're going to be audited on things like social media, your SEO, your marketing efforts, all of those things. We're going to be digging in deep and kind of getting to know your church and giving you some recommendations of ways that you can better your church communications. Now, it's super easy to sign up for one of these cohorts. You just go to the website, churchcommunications.com, and right there in the menu bar are the cohorts. Go there. You can see the starting date of any of our upcoming cohorts. You can see the topics listed on there. We will be joined by multiple churches in your time zone, and we're going to just all kind of dig in together. You're going to get to know them. We're going to get to know you. It's going to be great. And our professional and very very awesome coaches are going to be on these calls leading them. You guys, this is a very special opportunity. It's just $199 as well. That is so affordable for any and all of us. So go to the website, sign up today, and I hope to see you at one of our cohorts.
If you're watching the video and you've seen the Old Spice one, like there's a lot of similarities between Steve and this Old Spice man. I was actually joking to Kim about this yesterday. I was like, I wonder if Kim's going to say the Old Spice commercial is her favorite because I wonder why.
I was thinking it, but
I think in that process of Steve saying it, we're both filtering our brains a lot through those comments. So, but there's an element of seeing yourself represented in a commercial that makes you go, oh, like this is for me. If I can, this Old Spice man looks like me and is getting all of these experiences. Well, then if I use Old Spice, I'll have the same thing. But it even translates into the girls because now there's a sense of hope. Like you even mentioned it, like, oh, there's an empowerment of like, this is what people view me as, or this is how I view myself. But then there's an element of progression of like, here's my power. Here's the place that I can soar and find my people and my tribe. And that's a good commercial because it brings you in and you have a sense of hope and empowerment and hope for a better future. And that's what we have to offer as a church is you come to us and you get a part of our community and you come and meet Jesus and there is a hope for a better future for you. So we can even pull some of those basic principles that tug on our heartstrings and implement that into our church marketing. And I like what Steve had to say about the funny because those are mine. Like I think 2010 was the highlight of Super Bowl commercials because the first one, and everyone knows this, is the Snickers commercial with Betty White.
Yes.
And Betty White is on the football field. She's getting tackled. And at some point, they're like arguing at Betty White of like, get your head in the game. And she said, like, that's not what your girlfriend said or something. And like that moment.
It's the guy says you're playing like Betty White.
Like, oh, you're playing like Betty White. He's like, that's not what your girlfriend says. Yeah. And like just that. Number one, the shock factor, because the recognizability of Snickers, and it's not the recognizability of like, oh, Snicker has this, but you're not yourself unless you've had a Snickers kind of thing. We all knew that. We all came in with that foundation of like, this is what Snickers is going to present. Like it's predictable, but how are they going to present it? Like we have that too. Like, oh yeah, church is going to market themselves for Easter, for Christmas, for back to church, but how are they going to present themselves? And bringing in that extra shock factor is good.
I would say one of the big parts of that, like what you're saying, is the subversion of expectations. Because that whole commercial, that's what it's about. Like you have Betty White playing football. Well, that's weird. And then two, like if you remember, you guys got to go watch this on YouTube. The first hit when somebody tackles Betty White, you're like, this is an 80-year-old woman. And she just got totally plowed over by this like 30-year-old dude and into the mud and everything. And so there's a subversion there. And then when she like kind of snaps back at the guy about yeah, that's not what your girlfriend said. Like, it's just like, that's not what you expect from Betty White. And so like, as you kind of start going into marketing, one of the big things is everybody has an expectation of how this story is going to end. And then when you can subvert it, you really make something memorable. In church marketing and church advertising, everybody has an expectation of what churches are going to do. Like there's hundreds, thousands of churches in the United States. And we're like, I know what this is going to be. But when you can kind of turn that on its head a little bit, then it makes people pay attention and like, oh, maybe this isn't what I expected. Excuse me. And so I think that's just a wonderful tactic when you're looking at marketing that way.
Okay.
Yeah. And the second one that I had was the same year, 2010. It was the E-Trade commercial. And it's basically like a Skype session between a baby and his baby girlfriend.
Yes.
And they're like conversing and they're having an argument. And she said something about like that milkaholic Lindsay and like how relatable. Number one, the funny component, because with the relatability, we all know a Lindsay and we all know a milkaholic. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, a milkaholic Lindsay. That makes you laugh. But people walked away saying milkaholic Lindsay, like we even those commercials where it's like you lint liquor, like those old Super Bowl commercials with that one, just having a catchphrase that people can walk away with that's stuck in their head. So Betty White that element of surprise was there, the predictability, but with the element of surprise. Here, they took a different approach of, I'm going to give you a catchphrase to walk away with, something that's going to stick with you and stick within your brain that you're going to say. And that would be great even for us. Like, let's brainstorm something that we can say for Easter or for Christmas that is going to stick with somebody, that is a catchphrase that's funny, relatable, that is applicable, that makes the memorable aspects to a commercial and advertising.
And honestly, like those are the types of things that are shareable. When we make, and I don't want to like insult any church here, but like when we make a commercial of like, an Easter advertisement, let's say, of like, here's our youth pastor, like, hey, come to our church. It's like so great at Easter and you want to come and join us. There's nothing memorable about that. There is nothing about that that makes you go like, I want to share this with my neighbors who know nothing about Jesus. But when you have one of my favorites, not again, but another one of my favorites is the tackler guy, Steve, who is like, it's like the guy,
the office linebacker.
It's the office linebacker, right? And so these people are like working or whatever, and they stand up from their desk, and the linebacker just hits them and takes them down. That there is something so funny about that, and churches have used that commercial in different ways. Like, again, we've used it for promotion. The life group linebacker, like life groups is always a fun thing to do. Steve, there was another church you saw, they did like
the first ones to do it. The guy's name is Derwin Gray. He's a pastor on the East Coast, I believe. And he did the evangelism linebacker back in the day.
Yes.
And so it was like people going to share their faith, and they were just doing it really awkward. And he would just come out of nowhere and just drill them, just like knock them out.
All right, it's all you. This house has got your name on it.
I'm not ready yet.
What makes you think I'm ready, though?
Let me talk to you about fear. 4th and 1, Jerry Rice, what you gonna do? That don't compare to 4th and 1 in eternity. God loves you. Get off the floor and go door to door.
Can we talk to you for a minute?
And,
that's so good. Like, I want to share that with my non-church people, because that is so funny and it's different and it's outside the box. And I think as we lean into those types of commercials or those types of marketing within our churches, being creative, getting outside of the normal and really thinking through, like, what are we doing in our marketing to not just make it, here's super Christianese, we're slapping you in the face, but here's just something fun and engaging that you might laugh at and you might go, okay, this is kind of cool. I'll come check out your church.
Yeah, I mean, what it really is, it's short form storytelling. I mean, Super Bowl commercials are a minute long, but what they do in that minute is they tell a little story. And stories are what relate to our heart. Those are the things that start like giving us a new perspective. Like, I can talk to you all day about my opinions, but if I tell you a story or an anecdote about like, hey, this happened here, or can you imagine if this, like, all of a sudden it starts to take root in your mind and you're going to remember that. Like, you're not going to remember just me talking at your face. But yeah, when you start telling stories, and stories can be funny, stories can be emotional. There's just so many ways to use it. Yeah. And as as marketers, we've got to tell better stories. And that's where we get really lazy when we have just the, hey, I'm talking to the screen and I'm telling you about our event on Friday or whatever. We can get kind of lazy there. Like, and there's a million ways to add story to it. You don't have to have a high budget and everything like that. It could be you telling a story, but using stories to really engage people's hearts and their emotions, that's what's going to actually move them to more toward making a decision to engage, to take a next step, or whatever that may be. Like logic and like just, hey, let me tell you something that makes sense. There's a small percentage of people that move toward that, but really it's the heart that moves most people.
Yeah, that's so good. Hey, we need to have a conversation on video, short form video, because I think that's a really good topic there, Steve, of like you were saying, like these Super Bowl commercials, they are short form. Like they're a minute or under. Some commercials are 30 seconds, some are a minute, and yet they are telling a story. And so often churches go, no, we need 3 to 5 minutes to tell the story. No, you don't. You can capture it. It's thinking ahead, it's planning ahead, and it's putting that together and planning that out. So I think we should do a video. I think we should do a week on short form video. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah. Maybe
this is a great idea.
Next week. Let's think about next week.
Hey, we need to talk.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Hey, We Need to Talk.
If you'd like more information about Church Communications Group, just go to our website at churchcommunications.com and we'll see you on the next episode.
Hey.